who guaranteed the deal. It's a mess of an organization with a really good coach and I think a pretty sharp GM. And so I stayed away because I don't trust Philadelphia. I've said I think their coach is over his new unshaven head. That was if there's such thing as a bad win in the NFL, that was it. Cleveland's awful. Sirianni at one point is jousting with the home fans. And this remains a confounding stat. You should absolutely be terrified if you're an Eagles fan. Off a bye with an offensive coach. First two series, Jalen Hurts 0 for 5, 2 punts. They had both their receivers back. Saquon Barkley's a stud. Offensive line's good enough. Lane Johnson said our offense is constipated. But you're at home, a terrible team, offensive coach, off a bye, a reeling team, both your star receivers back. In your first two drives, that's where coaches, offensive coaches off a bye. Like, by the way, Sean McVay is off a bye this week against the Raiders. Take Sean McVay. Like, take offensive coaches off bye, especially when they're off a bye at home against a reeling team with a bad mojo in Cleveland. And they couldn't muster with both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back. First two drives 0 for 5, Jalen Hurts. Those are scripted plays. He's over his skis. I don't know what to tell you. They're great at running back. They're excellent at wide receiver. They're always good at tight end. The O-line's top 10. Offensive coach. So they don't have a Carolina issue where the roster's bad, or a Cowboy issue upstairs is bad. I mean, they're 3-2 completely on how talented their roster is. And they've done it with some injuries. There's a Super Bowl roster, and Nick Sirianni after jousting with home fans.
Absurd.
When everybody knows there's been this question about his maturity, and he brought his 3 kids to the press conference
Also
after
absurd.
to be a bit of a buffer against the usually relentless Philadelphia press.
We thrive off the crowd when they cheer for us. That's all I'll say. Like, when our crowd cheers for us, we thrive off them, and, we hear them when they boo. We don't necessarily like it. I don't think that's productive for anybody, but, when they cheer for us and when they, we love it.
Well, I don't want to make this personal, but Sirianni reminds me, I think he thinks he's a certain level of IQ, but he reminds me of a crypto bro, but the crash is coming. Like, no, you can't do that. Like coaches, could you just say this out loud? Can you imagine Andy Reid jousting regularly with fans? Oy, oy, oy. J-Mac with the news.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Colin for the most part, especially everything about Sirianni. Seeing him yell with the fans is just absurd. But I wanted to highlight a few positives about the Eagles game, and I'll talk more about the negatives either in this video or on in other videos, like with First Things First and stuff like that. But because the game to me also highlights coaching, but I looked at the stats for the Commanders, Jaden Daniels and Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, of course, all versus the Browns, right? All 3 of these teams played the Browns. And you had Jalen Hurts actually played the best out of all the other quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts was 16 for 25, 64% completion percentage. Dak was 19 for 32, 59%. Jaden Daniels was 14 for 25, 56%. You had 264 yards for Hurts, only 179 for Dak, 238 for Jaden Daniels. 10.6 yards per attempt for Jalen Hurts, 5.6 yards per attempt for Dak, 9.5 yards per attempt for Jaden Daniels, 85 rating for Dak and Jaden Daniels, and 126 rating for Hurts. And Hurts had 2 touchdowns, whereas Jaden Daniels had 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and Dak only had 1 touchdown. So Jalen Hurts played the best game out of all the quarterbacks versus the Browns, which I did find really interesting, because then it's like, well, why didn't they put up enough points, right? Where were the points lacking? And it was the run game. The Cowboys got 4.1 yards per carry. The Commanders got a huge 6.3 yards per carry. And the Eagles only had 3.2, which is absurd when you have Saquon Barkley, right? When you have Saquon Barkley and that offensive line, which again, to me is coaching. And the run game was never innovative. It was never imaginative. It was just, it felt like to me, we clearly are going to run the ball. We want to run the ball, but it felt lazy. It felt like, oh, we're just doing this because we want to appease critics, because people keep saying we got to run the ball, so we'll just run the ball, right? And that's not even really the Eagles' offense. The Eagles' offense is to utilize, because Jalen Hurts is very accurate with the ball. And you have A.J. Brown, and you have Devontae, and I know Dallas Goedert went down. You have those weapons. They need to be more of what the Green Bay Packers do and Matt LaFleur does, where they throw to set up the run versus running to set up the throw. It's kind of different, and it's what Matt LaFleur does with the Packers, which is really, really great. The score is also somewhat misleading, but when you've had the season that the Eagles have had, you don't get the benefit of the doubt, right? One, they would have scored again near the end of the game, but they obviously didn't need to. And two, that blocked punt, that blocked field goal, which then turned into, a touchdown. You take away 7 points off the board, and the score is now 20-9, right? And so then it looks a lot more commanding and convincing. But like I said, you lose that benefit of the doubt when you've had the season that the Eagles have had, right? Dropping the ball versus the Falcons, getting beat pretty good by the Buccaneers, right? Like you lose that benefit of the doubt, also dating back last season. So I understand why you can't fully explain away. And again, even though I went through the numbers and said Jalen Hurts clearly played the best, you still would have expected a better game, a better game plan. But it was interesting because the commentator, forget his name, was like, the fans are booing and they shouldn't. He goes, I know this Browns team, their stats aren't that good because they're on the field so much, but they're actually a really good defense. I don't know how much I believe in that. I don't think the Browns are a trash defense. I don't think that they're this awful defense, but I don't know if they're this elite defense either, as commonly billed for the Browns. So you would have liked to have seen a better game out of Philadelphia. No ifs, ands, or buts, but I'm not so sure it was 100%. When you look at that score, I think that score is just a little bit more misleading, quite frankly. Because also the Browns versus the Commanders and versus the Cowboys, you had some really gift turnovers from them. Especially versus the Cowboys, Deshaun Watson was just literally just gifting interceptions. I mean, he was just like, it was like, here you go, you want the ball, right? Like it was just like gifts, right? And so when you get those easy possessions, you're going to get extra points, and that's how you get a score that's going to be significantly higher. Watson didn't necessarily do that versus, and it's not like he played good either, but I think he also technically, outside of the turnovers, had his worst game versus the Eagles as well. So I think it was a little things like not being able to get big turnovers and then get really easy short field position, as well as having like a block punt, which then made this game feel closer than it actually fundamentally was. Because even the broadcast was like that first half. Now the score was, I think, ended up being 10-10 because of that blocked field goal. He was like, the Eagles dominated that first half, and yet here we are with the score. And that is a problem. That is a problem with the Eagles, right? The failure to execute. And the problem is, too, you watch this game and you go, okay, I can explain this game, right? I can explain away this game. I can make sense of it a little bit. But then you watch like the Detroit Lions play, right? And if the Eagles said that they were a true contender with the Super Bowl roster, which I believe they are in terms of the roster, not necessarily the contender, because you look at what the Lions did and you can see how much harder they play. You can see their game plan. You can see how ahead they are of the NFL and everything they're doing. And they just play so hard. They're coming out of their cleats. They're just ready to just go all out. Every play, it's a cliche, but they literally play every play like it's their last. It's insane. Philadelphia Eagles fans playing like Allen Iverson out there. It's just... And that's coaching. That's preparation. That's belief. That is not what Nick Sirianni does. That's why I've been saying, get Nick Sirianni out of here. Just get him out of here. This team does not play with the level of heart that Philadelphia Eagles fans are accustomed to. Just go back to the 2017 team. That was a team that played with heart and belief and physicality. Not even 22. 22 was built off of Shane Steichen's intelligence. And that's what makes Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell for the Lions such a great combination, because Ben Johnson is the super genius. He's the one that's coming up with all of these plays. My God, his bag is just massive. Even Tom Brady was like, "Hey, you're burning too many plays in such a blowout game." But he's like, Ben Johnson probably has so many of them he doesn't care. And then you have Dan Campbell, who just preaches just hard work, right? You practice how you play how you practice. It's just hard, physical, let's go football. And you can see that the Eagles don't necessarily have that, because they should have been able to do that to the Browns. They should have been able to come out this game and said, we are for real. We were struggling because we weren't fully healthy. We are healthy. Let's go. Because you had the Lions say, hey, we want revenge on the Cowboys. And obviously the Cowboys are a better team than the Browns. And then the Lions just walloped them. And then you have what the Eagles did to the Browns. So again, to me, it's coaching. It's a fundamental problem with the coaching. But at the same time, the roster is good enough. I mean, you had Jalen Hurts step up big, make some beautiful throws, converted that third down on the final drive with his legs, which was huge. He was great at buying time and scrambling for throws. And then he throws that 40-yard, just pinpoint perfect pass to AJ. Also the touchdown pass to AJ. I mean, like, you can see what Jalen Hurts is capable of doing. Get him the right coaching. You have Dak. You have Dak. You have Hurts. You have AJ. You have Devontae. You have Saquon. Get the coach. Fire Sirianni. Make the offer for Ben Johnson. Do something, anything. But then you have Sirianni barking at the fans. There's not a single Philadelphia Eagles fan that likes that. There's just no way. Absolutely no way. It's embarrassing. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles and their win and Nick Sirianni and all of that? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.